All right. Today we're going to be talking about the eighth house in astrology, giving you the full meaning explained. We're going to be going through the significations, the things that the eighth house represents in your life, and the meaning of the eighth house. Planets, planet that signifies or produces the eighth house aligns when it comes to what it represents. And also the best planet or the healthiest planet, the smoothest planet, and the most difficult planet in the eighth house. Finally, the eighth lord. On this side, we're going to be doing a breakdown of what it means to have the lord or the ruler of the sign holding the eighth cusp or in the eighth house, what it means when that eighth lord is placed in a couple different houses. We're not going to go through all the different houses, but just giving you a general understanding of what it means when you have your eighth lord in different places in your life. Then we're going to go through the signs, all 12 signs in the eighth house, holding the eighth cusp, to show you how it colors and flavors it, which will be different for each person with different ascendants, but just giving you a breakdown of what happens, how that area of life is colored thematically, or what that genre is based off of the sign. So when it comes to significations, what does the eighth house mean? What does it represent in your life? Most importantly, death, destruction, and transformation. It is the most painful house. It represents your inner demons, taboos, the occult, mysteries, taxes, other people's money, trusting other people as well, your emotional security, the deep research that you may do, or your hidden trauma and secrets and inner demons, the parts of yourself that are most painful, the weak spots, your weak points. So people who have lots of planets in the eighth house or in the eighth sign, Scorpio, you're going to be living an adventurous life. You're going to be learning a lot on the earth school or in the earth school that we are on right now. As a spiritual being, you're being called to develop yourself through trauma, difficulties, resilience, and facing the darker parts of yourself, facing your shadow. Eighth house, eighth sign, Scorpio and eighth house. Shadow work, facing your shadow. If you don't know what that means, look up Carl Jung, look up the shadow. Just a brief description. It is very important to understand if you have planets in the eighth house or a strong, prominent eighth lord. All right. And it also represents, like I said, other people's money, deep research, the occult, inner demons. It seems like that's the general consensus. It can also represent trust issues and also sexual intimacy. When it comes to the part of the body, it represents the sexual organs, right? You slowly go down, but the sexual organs is Scorpio. Right above that, you have the reproductive organs, like the reproductive section, and the lower intestines where you separate or where you release the poop. Where you separate is actually in the larger intestines. That's Libra. So Virgo, Libra, if you can even see, I'm getting a little intimate right here. You're welcome. Libra, and then the sexual organs themselves, the covered parts, the soft, vulnerable parts are Scorpio. And if you think about it, and the eighth house, same thing. And if you think about it, think about like your sexual organs. It's a place of intimacy. It's a place of connection, but it also can be tied to trauma and insecurity and also very vulnerable. More so for men, but even for women as well. It's a vulnerable, very sensitive part. Let's put it, that's the best way, sensitive. So eighth house represents your sensitivities, where you are very sensitive, okay? When it comes to planets, the natural karaka, the thing that naturally represents the eighth house is Saturn, because Saturn represents our trauma, our fears, our insecurities, our flaws, our secrets, but secrets in the sense of the things we hide from others because of our insecurities. So that is what and also breaks, if I didn't already say that, crisis and breaks is also indicative and represented by the eighth house. So Saturn's naturally aligned with that house. Now, it does not do well there. It actually does painful because it can increase your fears. It can increase the sensitivity to trauma. It can increase the desire to hide the harsher or painful parts of yourself or oneself in general. It can make your inner demons scarier. The most difficult planet there is the moon, because it's the most sensitive and receptive aspect of yourself. Wherever the moon is where you're going to have your comfort zone. Now, you have the moon there, it's going to be painful because you are a person who's being forged through fire, like forged through trauma, through pain, through suffering. You are learning to, you're getting the full experience. Hopefully, more positive as well, but eighth house or moon in the eighth house or Scorpio, you're going to be exposed to a lot of the darker aspects of reality. I mean, not to sugarcoat it for you, I try not to. I don't really. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's a tough, hats off to you if you have moon in eighth house or in Scorpio. You weren't messing around. Your soul decided to go the advanced route, and so I have respect for you. Being open to the experience, being able to discern and understand what is real and what is not is very important. Being able to have the courage to face your inner demons, to face your fears, to maneuver your trauma is important in this incarnation if you have moon in Scorpio or the eighth house. But the eighth house moon, yeah, it's gonna be difficult to catch your footing. It's going to be difficult to orient yourself, and you will be essentially be developed into being comfortable in the uncomfortable, comfortable through crisis. So moon Scorpio or moon eighth house have an ability to maneuver crisis or to be able to be receptive to the darker aspects of reality, because it's something that is just naturally a part of your makeup, spiritually speaking, and your past. Good planets, none. I'll be honest, I guess it's the most painful house. It's tough. I'm not even, I'm not going to pretend. If you were to have any planet, perhaps the sun, just because it's your destiny to go through the fire, it's going to be painful, but it gives you that ability to be consistent and steadfast through crisis and deal with those big breaks and those big traumas. Eighth house also represents chronic illness. So, we have no choice over it, right? But, try to avoid if you can having, you can't avoid it, but, it's best not to have anything in the eighth house. But it can make one very able to, if you have lots of planets there, very good with the occult, very mystical, very able to maneuver taboo subjects or through scandals or things like that. You're involved in those areas, somebody who can deeply research things. So it's not all bad. It's a lot. It's like the bang for your buck. It's just, if you have planets in the first, the 10th, the trines, first, 10th trines, you get a lot of bang for your buck. You put in less effort and you get more back. Eighth house, you put in a lot and you don't get as much back. It's a Dhisthana. So what are you going to do? Now, eighth lord. So we always start with Aries, put that bad boy. And then also when it comes to Varga, there is a Varga chart that does align with the eighth. I believe it's the 24th Varga, but that's too high. We focus on the main Vargas within, I think it's the big 10 or 9 Varga charts. So, that's how painful eighth house is it doesn't even have its own Varga chart like all the others. So don't worry about that. But Mars, this is the sun as the Lord, eighth lord, right? Because it's the planet that rules the sign that holds the eighth cusp, or is the eighth sign in the chart. So what happens when you eighth house? Or eighth lord is causes some problems. You put the eighth lord in say the ninth house. You have somebody who also breaking the law, outlaws. Like I said, demons, darkness, that eighth cusp, eighth house. That's what it represents. So you put that in the ninth house, which represents law and beliefs and religion and culture and overall like societal frameworks and beliefs. You have somebody who could be prone to breaking the laws or breaking down systems, who can experience crisis and transformation to develop one's wisdom. Again, the eighth lord, the lords of any house are going to support and serve the houses that it's in. So to gain your wisdom, to gain your understanding, to gain higher spiritual knowledge or higher education, could be like grad school or even university, it's going to be transformational. You might even avoid it because it's so painful. You can have more trauma or fear and insecurity surrounding these concepts of one's culture, one's society, one's higher education, spiritual beliefs, and path in life, one's dharma. The ninth house is path, and even represents marriage. So you can have more crisis within your marriage, not necessarily your partnerships and relationships, but your marriage, your committed, unified path, your spiritual union with another human being, which is what marriage represents. It's either a legal union if you're more practical, like an atheist, or it's a spiritual union if you're more spiritual. To be honest, I think it's both, but it just depends on how you look at it. And wherever eighth, it's going to cause problems. Everyone has an eighth house. Everyone has an eighth lord. Not everybody has planets in the eighth house, which can make life more difficult. That's where you can have the differences, right? But you have a lot of planets in the eighth house. You're playing life on hard mode. I mean, respect. Not everybody has that muscle. You put the eighth lord in the first house, a lot of transformation, can have crisis along your path, can have breaks and flaws, but also an ability to you deeply research oneself, being able to be introspective, being able to face one's demons, because it's just a natural part of who you are. It's not something that you have to think about too much. It's just who you are as a person. Deeply go into things, because Scorpio, eighth house, goes deep, goes to the root, goes to the core, looks underneath, opens up the hood, likes to get to the core of things, likes to look underneath the surface. These are eighth house things. These are the ability to look in areas where people are too scared to look or are not even aware that they exist. That's eighth house. It's places you're too scared to look or you don't even know they're there. Fourth house is private areas of your life that just happens to be in your home, right? 12th house is like the places that are hidden, but you're more so consciously hiding. 8th house is like it's even hidden from you. So stuff going on in the 8th house can be hidden even from yourself. And that's like why I mentioned your shadow, because it's that darker part. It's the shadow we cast, right? You see how I'm casting a shadow with the light on the board. I don't know if you can see it, but as the light hits me, it casts a shadow behind you. So you're presenting this part of yourself to the world. This is what everyone sees, the persona, the mask, the first house and the first lord. But behind you is the shadow, it's the cast, and that's hidden from the world and even from yourself because you're looking here. That's the 8th house, and that's the 8th lord. And that shadow has certain benefits to it. It's not all bad, it's not all dark, it's not all sad. There are amazing gifts and tools and treasures. And so you can have somebody with hidden gifts or find a lot of hidden treasure in places that people don't look when you have the 8th lord in the first house, but it's not going to be easy. The 8th house makes life hard, period. So what happens when you have the different signs in the 8th house or conjunct holding the 8th cusp? You have somebody who may be experiencing crisis, trauma, or breaks in their life in a very dynamic way, can be very quick. So it starts quickly and ends quickly, can have fiery, explosive temperament at times, be somebody who explodes energetically, because 8th house can also represent our emotional security. And so you can have a more dynamic emotional security where there's very chill for a while and then a big explosion and then very chill. If you have the Aries in the 8th, with the 8th cusp in the 8th house. And when it comes to when it comes to transformation, what, the purpose, right? Because the sign is not only the how, like how it's happening, but also the why, or maybe even the underlying purpose of each house. And so what do you get through the crisis, the transformation, the breaks, the trauma, facing your inner demons? You get your individuality. You get Aries qualities. You get your individuality. You get your pioneering energy. You get inspiration and vision to bring something into this world and be the first at something, be the best at something, to fight. And that warrior energy is forged through crisis, through transformation, through death and rebirth. That's why you're going through it. If you have Aries in the 8th house, if you have Taurus in the 8th, crisis, transformation, I have Taurus in the 8th house, will usually come slower. So they won't blindside you as much on average because Taurus is a slower moving sign. They can still be very painful. The transformations can still knock you on your ass. Let's not get it twisted. It's not like life is just a bundle of roses, especially here on Earth. I mean, my goodness, especially now. Oy vey. But with Taurus, usually you'll see it coming easier. Usually there will be more of an ability to regulate one's emotions, though there will be, intensity. Everyone has intense emotions, but it's a lot less sharp than an Aries, where it's really chill for a while and then it really explodes emotionally. Because again, it's that emotional security. But Aries, yeah, I mean, it can, or Taurus, it's more steady. You can see the crises, transformations coming slower, but it'll affect you in more permanent ways. That's the downside. So they come slower, they manifest slower, but they're more permanent. The breaks, the chronic illnesses, whatever they may be, will stick around longer with Taurus there because it's a more fixed, steady, practical sign and usually affect your practical environment. You'll feel it in a real tangible way, not just in an internal or emotional or psychological way. And when it comes to why are you going through this depth and transformation, why are you going through these breaks, these illnesses, chronic illnesses, these difficult things that are coming from the 8th house, what is that for? It's to find your inherent value, your self-worth, that's what Taurus represents, and also resourcefulness and practical material security. Through that transformation, through that trauma, through the breaks, you learn how to make it in this material world, especially if you're a material girl. Maybe some of you are too young for that reference. It's Madonna. Gemini is, you're going to have breaks will come into your life. They can be unpredictable, but they won't be necessarily as volatile or as violent as Aries on the 8th cusp. Can be more so trivial, but a lot more, right? So there's a lot more breaks, crises, but they happen more frequently and more on the surface level, less deep. And what's the point? Why are you going through these breaks? These little breaks, these smaller breaks that are probably constantly happening more often than the average person? What is the point, the purpose, the why? Well, to develop your intellect, while you're dealing with these crises, these problems that are popping up here and there, you're developing skills to solve those problems, or you're learning to maneuver it like a game. You might even be able to approach crises and breaks like a game, like a fun thing that you're having to deal with. Not all the time, right? Because you're gonna have Scorpio in the 1st house, but people with Gemini in the 8th, holding the 8th cusp, are able to manage crises with their intelligence, with their strategic mind, with their skills, and also with other people, with their teammates, communicating and working with other people, because this is the 3rd sign that is aligned with the 3rd house, which represents our teammates and our peers and our associates and our neighbors and siblings. Okay? So why are you transforming with Gemini in the 8th cusp? To develop your skills, intellect, and also to make life interesting. Because a safe life is a boring life. Not for me personally, but I have my Lagna Lord and Ascendant and Sun in Scorpio, so I'm a little biased. I'm very biased. Cancer in the 8th. Cancer with the 8th cusp. When it comes to crises, they can actually happen a lot more internally. So Taurus, you'll be more visible, be more in your practical life. They might unfold, can be quickly as well, but based off your emotional energy and be responsive to your emotional energy. They can be aligned. Crisis, trauma will affect you on an emotional level. It can just be an emotional crisis. The watery sign of Cancer can also be relating to your home or to your relationships, or more so the emotional connections you have with other people, the emotional bonds, because the 8th house is an emotional bond. It's an intimate house. It's our 7th is sex. 8th house is 2nd, the gains you get from sex, which is intimacy, emotional bond, union. Okay? Fun sex, deep, emotional, connective sex. 2 different things, 2 different types of sex. Be careful saying that word so much on this channel. I might get demonetized. So with Cancer, what is the point of transformation? Why go through these breaks that are emotionally painful and can be messing up your internals more so than your externals, like somebody that would say have Taurus on the 8th cusp in the 8th house? Emotional satisfaction, emotional autonomy, emotional resilience, being able to be an emotionally independent person and not have to worry about, or not necessarily have to worry about, but knowing that when things are going awry externally, emotionally you can regulate yourself within the context of a crisis, within the context of transformation, death, rebirth, trauma, all those things. But water sign in the eighth, I mean, that's gonna, it's not a cakewalk. You're not skipping through the rose garden or something, or like the prairie. Don't people even have prairies anymore? But we got Leo. So we have Leo on the eighth cusp. Transformations will unfold, more steadily, probably less catch you by surprise, but they will involve usually perhaps a change in your kingdom or your place, because Leo represents your kingdom, like the lion pride, your area, your territory. So, you're in your secure place where you run things and whatever, and then there's a shift or there's a crisis or there's something that changes drastically, and you're like, oh my, I thought I was safe in my neck of the woods, and your neck of the woods becomes another person's neck of the woods, or it's a lit ablaze. Like that's, and it's almost like a slow fire too, or there's a slow moving, you see the ships from Spain and you're in America and you're like, oh, what is that? Is that a god? I don't know. And they slowly come and you're like, aye. And now your place is different. It's been transformed and you have to grow as a leader, as a king, as a person in your kingdom. Because we all have them. We're all the main character in our own stories. It's just some are more aware of it than others, and some people need to be woken up to remind themselves that they are the main character of their own stories. Why are you transforming? Why are you going through these crises? Why is the territory that you thought was yours and that you knew where everything was and you ran things and you were the leader of your kingdom, whatever that may be, whether it be at work, at home, in nature, wherever you've decided your kingdom is, online, in a certain, I don't know, forum board, YouTube comment section, Reddit mod, everyone has their own kingdom. But you go through transformations in your kingdom when you have Leo in the eighth, with the eighth cusp in the eighth house. Why? Why are you going through the transformations? Why are you going through the breaks? You're going through them to elevate and evolve as a leader. Because the old territory, the old kingdom was obsolete. And so life is bringing you this crisis, bringing you this transformation, this chronic illness, whatever it may be, this trauma, to force you into new lands. And the reason why we go through trauma is because we hold on to the reality we think is right. It's traumatizing when you think things are the way they're supposed to be, and then there's a big drastic shift that you can't adjust to. Now with Leo, that shift happens slower on average, usually, right? Depending on also the Lord. You got to look at the eighth Lord, because everything I'm saying also applies to the eighth Lord. Over the eighth Lord, if it's in Leo, or the eighth sign is Leo, those two things, and there's a balancing act between those two signs, and it's going to color that area of your life when it comes to death, rebirth, transformation. Eighth house also represents taxes. I might have forgot to mention that earlier. But Leo, you're transforming to become a better leader and to shift into a territory that is more sustainable, that is better, and that is more aligned with the current framework of reality. Virgo will usually affect, when it comes to crisis and transformation, affect your practical life. It may be involving things that you need to fix, so leading to breaks in things that you own that requires refinement, or things that you thought were refined or fixed or pure become a source of trauma or breaks or insecurities, or you're noticing the flaws in things and can be overly neurotic about potential flaws and things of that nature. But it will affect you in a practical way because it's an earth sign. So, it's going to be tangible. It's going to be more visible to the general public or people around you that are in your life more so. If you're a private person, it'll be less visible, but you get the point. And why are you transforming? Why are you going through these breaks? Why are you going through this trauma, these flaws, etc.? These deep wounds. You're going through them to refine yourself, to develop yourself, to purify yourself, to burn off the bad karma. Because that's another thing. Eighth house, fifth house, good karma, right? Ninth house, developing good karma. Eighth house, be frank with you. bad karma. You're burning off the bad karma, the the bad fruits. And if you want a description that's a little bit more tempered, the painful, unsustainable, destructive fruits that you're just burning off that karma. And so Virgo, particularly, is purifying itself, doing it to become more pure, to become more innocent, to step into your innocence, step into your own purity, and not in a creepy way, but just in a general way of being able to see life with a more innocent gaze, a more innocent perspective and approach, and not needing to control everything too as well. Learning how to refine things and work with things, but not having to control things. I almost forget, actually, the transformation too, it's going to be a lot of about releasing and letting go of control. Yeah. Oof. That can be painful. I mean, they all are, though, right? It's the 8th house. Jesus Christ. Libra, you manifest socially more so, probably in relationships is where you'll see that, especially, it could be sex, can be intimacy, doesn't have to be, the darkest stuff that you're probably thinking about now that I just mentioned it. But, there can be trauma, there can be insecurities, there can be flaws in our interpersonal relationships, in our exchanges. And the way that, manifests is through the social dynamics in our life. And what's that for? Why? Is to develop oneself, to be able to become a more graceful and socially intelligent, right? There's emotional intelligence, there's intellectual intelligence, there's creative intelligence, there's kinetic, physiological intelligence, being a good athlete like a LeBron James or Michael Jordan. It's also a form of intelligence. There's also social intelligence, right? Being socially intelligent, understanding how to maneuver things, being able to analyze a social situation and to see, oh, okay, that person's bad news, or I shouldn't be exchanging my energy with other people, becoming better able to maneuver social dynamics more intelligently, more awareness. That is why you're going through those death transformations. And also, almost forgot, to find more balance in your life. If you're going through crisis, transformation, you got Libra on the 8th house, it's because there is probably an extreme. You're going to extreme in one direction. Libra is all about acquiring balance, harmony, to get balance, to develop yourself socially, become more socially intelligent, right? And to get a fair deal. So not to be taken advantage of. So Libra in the 8th, depending on where Venus is, the Lord is, can be somebody who experiences trauma because of people pleasing or because they've been a pushover in certain situations that have led to that trauma. Especially if Venus is in the 1st house, you have somebody who's been taken advantage of because of their niceness. Scorpio, you got the natural 8th sign, most painful sign in the most painful house. Try not to swear. Aries, 1st house. So you're an Aries ascendant. It's always easy for me to remember that one. If you have Scorpio there, it's Scorpio on 8th house energy. It's like on like. So transformations are deep. They are intense. They are powerful. And I mean, usually hidden, when there's transformations happening, when there's that deep trauma, might want to be somebody who hides it from the world, doesn't want to expose it as much, not be like Libra, 8th cusp, be more likely to socially share their crisis, their breaks. Say Taurus might want to find an intimate person to express it to, but they might, not want to just share it all over the place, but they want to share with other people. Scorpio, 8th house, 8th cusp, or the 8th lord in Scorpio might be fine with not telling anybody, might tell AI or something, or might not even trust AI with their deepest traumas, fears, insecurities. They want to deal with it in their own, so might hide from the world. And when you have Scorpio there, also the transformations, what's the point of the transformations, the crisis, the breaks that are deep? And obviously they come in to fixed signs, so it manifests more slowly, like with Leo and like with Taurus, but it really cuts emotionally deep. And what's the point? Why? Become emotionally resilient, more powerful, and to grow, to transform, to shed your skin like a snake, which is what Scorpio represents, not just a scorpion, but also reptiles, and particularly snakes. Shed your skin to evolve into a better version of yourself. like a phoenix rising from the ashes. And this can be very uncomfortable for some people. Some people may not be able to deal with it, but Scorpio, Aries ascendant, you can do it if you put your mind to it. We all can. We just have to, want to, and believe. Things like that. Cliches like that. Sagittarius with the 8th cusp, somebody who most likely experiences transformation crisis, death, rebirth in their transformation, or in their transformation. Crisis breaks, rebirth cycle, death, rebirth cycle, through adventures, through learning, through their beliefs and faith. It might go through crisis or breaks in one's faith, in what one believes, in one's purpose in life. Also through learning, through a guru or teacher, might find crisis there as well. But it's an unfolding that will occur through a belief, a faith, a purpose, right? Or through an openness to an adventure, through adventure. You're seeing different things, but when you're adventuring, shit happens. And when it comes to what's the point of transformation? Why? ¿Por qué, señor? Well, good question. Thank you for asking. It's to gain your wisdom, that internal guidance system, that intuition that guides you in the proper direction, which is very much what Sagittarius represents, or to move towards your goals, or to even discover your goals. In the beginning, in the earlier life, it's more so probably you're going through these crises, these breaks, these transformations to discover the thing you're shooting for. And then you're refining and becoming better at aiming towards your goals through the crisis, through the breaks, through the transformations, becoming a better shot and moving towards them. What your purpose is, what your goals are, gaining wisdom along the way, becoming knowledgeable, and experiencing these crises to teach others about it and to learn about it. Capricorn is, it's a painful sign. Like Scorpio, it's a painful sign in a painful house. Crisis breaks can come in practical ways, through problems in one's life, through the troubles one's facing, through the challenges that is coming up to a person that they have to just persevere through, or to greater through hard work. It can come from, honestly, overworking, grinding, taking on too much can lead to crisis breaks. And the point of that, the point of these breaks, these crises, these transformations with Capricorn on the 8th cusp is to be able to solve bigger problems. When you solve the smaller problems, you learn the painful lessons, and then you can solve bigger problems, and then you can solve bigger problems and keep going along that path and keep persevering and sharpening your blade, sharpening your metal, okay? Becoming more powerful, more successful, and cutting through the bullshit. And also establishing a new tradition as well, because Capricorn is a more traditional sign. Wherever Capricorn is you're going to be more traditional. Or if you have prominent planets like the moon, ascendant lord, or the sun in Capricorn, you will have a traditional bend, traditional way of moving through life, okay? But yeah, why are you transforming? To gain practical success, to gain authority as well. When somebody's been through the fire, when someone's been through difficulties and crises, and they come out the other side stronger with a sharpened blade, well, they gain authority, they gain power, people respect them more, they can gain more success. We love to watch movies and plays and art about trials and tribulations overcome. It's the hero's journey, my friend. 8th house, very important step in the hero's journey. We got Aquarius on the 8th cusp, or holding the 8th cusp, or in the 8th sign, the 8th sign. More can come in unique ways. Crisis breaks can come in unique ways, idiosyncratic ways, progressive ways, meaning involving things that are of the future or of the current day and age. So like through technology, maybe, someone gets dumped by, I'm just joking, but like somebody gets dumped by their AI girlfriend or something, or doom scrolling, and then like you break your thumb because you get a, I mean, I'm joking, right? But obviously, or yeah, you're texting and driving and you get in a car crash. Like these are like unique, progressive, involving technology, involving innovation, or psychological breaks. Because again, Aquarius is a very intellectual sign, always pontificating about the future, about society as a whole, humanity as a whole. And, so this person can experience psychological breaks, internal breaks, but from an intellectual perspective. Cancer is more emotional, feeling based. Okay. Scorpio is just painful and deep. Aquarius is more the intellectual, cerebral, but like the psychological blocks getting in the way, or psychological trauma. And why? Why are you going through these crises? Why are you going through these breaks in innovative ways, progressive ways, or psychological ways? Why? You're going through them because you're meant to become more psychologically resilient. You're meant to work through the psychological blocks that are keeping you from going to Pisces to get that spiritual liberation, that transcendence, to move on to the next realm and level of existence, my friend. That is why you have Aquarius on the 8th cusp, or your 8th lord in Aquarius. To make it quite simple. And we have Pisces. Pisces on the 8th cusp, in the 8th house, as the 8th sign. We have spiritual crisis breaks, meaning crisis, purpose crisis, which can be aligned with Sagittarius, but more bigger picture. Disillusionment, losing sense of reality through escapism can also be something that happens through the crisis, the illness, the trauma, escaping reality, disassociation, things of that nature, but the dissolving of the material world, the dissolving of the three-dimensional space of this reality. And why? Why are you going through this? What are you doing? What is the point of this? Trauma, this break, this disillusionment, this confusion, this disorientation, dissociation, depersonalization. I feel like I'm rapping. It's depersonalization, disassociation. Just rattling it off. But why? What's the point? The point is to move on to the next layer of reality, to transcend this level of existence and to move on to a higher level of existence. Doesn't mean that you die. Doesn't mean that you shed this chemical form, biological form. It just means that you're moving on to the next phase of life, to transcend the old problems, to transcend the old perspective. I would really say perspective, way of viewing life. You're transcending in a spiritual way or a higher way. You might not see it that way, right? Because there's many people that are atheists, especially with technology nowadays. But energetically, there's an openness, there's a surrender. And that is the best process in transformation for a Pisces, is to surrender to it, to be open, approach yourself with compassion, approach other people's crises with compassion and understanding, and surrender, letting go, so you can move on to the next phase. Because the only way you can step through one door is by closing it, closing another, or by leaving behind what is in the room behind you as you move into the next phase, into the next realm of existence. 12th sign is the ending. And this is the end of the video. So thank you for getting here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them down below, and I'll do my best to enumerate and to explain deeper the concepts that were talked about in this video, if there is any confusion, like Pisces. And also would love to hear your opinions, positive, maybe even negative, and to work and see where people are at. And we move on to the next video, which is the 9th house. That'll be our next video in this series. We started with 1. If you haven't seen those videos, check them out. Go through the entire series, 1 through 12, all 12 houses, meaning explained. Thank you.